In this video, which is part 26 of how to create a custom candlestick chart in Chart.js, we're going to work on creating one of the oscillators, and this is the RSI, or the relative strength index oscillator. So we're going to create here a separate scale or a chart, although this chart is just blended within here nicely, and they're stacked on top of each other. And you can see that this here, if I zoom in here, this will work as well very beautifully. And we can as well remove and zoom out, and everything will work accordingly. So let's start to look how we can create this indicator here below. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue on, and we want to make another indicator, and this indicator will be basically part of the chart itself. Well, we have, like these options. Now we're going to put a new chart within here, or basically we're going to stack another chart within the existing chart. So what we're going to make here is the RSI, or the relative strength index indicator, and that will oscillate. Basically, oscillate means it's going somewhere from up to 100 to down to 0, and then goes up and down. Basically, it waves or swings one way or the other. So let's scroll down here, and we're going to put that in. Luckily, it's quite easy because Chart.js allows us to create a stacked chart within the existing chart. So what I'm going to do here, let's make sure we have this correctly. You can see here this data set here. And all I need to do is I need to go down, put a comma here, and we're going to say here we have a new data set. And what we're going to say here, this will be a type, and this will be our RSI indicator. So this one is truly built in. And then we're going to say here type will be a line, because it's a line chart. Next, what I want to say here, label, well, in this case we can say here RSI indicator. And what we could do here, I guess we could have a color. I guess what we can say here, background color, although we don't need really a background color, but I'll just make this black. I guess this doesn't even make any sense. We will not have any of that. It should be just a line. And then let's say here, what is that? The border color, that should be black. All right. Then what I want to have here is, of course, the data. So the data here is slightly more tricky, and I'm using here a parenthesis for the bracket. So I need to use this brackets first before I use curly brackets. And then within here, what I'm going to say here, I'm going to say here X, and we're just going to grab here the item that we have here above, identical to this. I'm going to put it in here, and probably we should maybe somewhere find a way how we can just streamline this correctly. But for now, this is the only way. So we're going to put that in there. And next, I'm going to put in here the S variable, and let's put this on 20. And you might wonder why the S. Well, and we can just put it all together like that. Why the S? Because this here, if you scroll down here, we had somewhere the data structure, and because of that data structure, we are forced to use the same data structure in our item. You can see here we have the parsing of the X and S. So for that, we're forced to use this structure. So then I'm going to go up here, and let's see, where are we? Hold on. All right, there we are. I'm going to duplicate this, and that should be maybe 8 or 9 times. How many times we have? I guess 8. That should be fine. Then I'm going to say 0. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if I'm not mistaken, that we had here after that will be 8, 9, and 10. All right. So we have this, and then I'm going to make this 5, 30. Let's see here, 40, and this will be 60 and 80, and then we have here it goes down again. Of course, it depends on the increase or decrease of the stock, but for now I'm just using fictional data. But if you have your official data, that should be no problem. You should have that. So if I save that, if I refresh here, all right, so we get this here now, but it doesn't understand that we have like a stacked chart. So it assumes that this is just one chart on its own. So what we need to do here is the following. After this data, I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'm going to say y-axis ID, and this will be based on a new scale. Basically, I'm saying here we have a new scale, and this scale I will call the y lower. And the reason why that is the y lower, eventually I want this chart to be on top, and then here below we will have then the indicator. So once we have this y lower, this scale must be inserted here below as well. So I'm going down here in the options. It's probably somewhere halfway through here. All right. And what we need to do here is we need, for the parsing, what we do need to indicate is to make sure that the y-axis key will be also the y lower. So basically we're indicating again there's a y lower that is matching with am I correct here? The y lower is, sorry, this should be matching with the s. Am I correct? I'm not certain about that one. I'll have to check on this. Oh, sorry, no, this is correct. This needs to be the y-axis matching with the numbers, because it's now from 0 to 100. That is what I want to do. So this is correct. And then here in the scale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and then just here below the y, I'm going to hear the y lower. And this y lower will have a few items. First of all, I want to make sure it starts with 0. What I want to do is I want to have here 0 till 100. So we say here begin at 0 is true, and then we say here max value is 100. So that's a fixed variable and it's not allowed to change. So this is the indicator has this. Next, what I want to do here is I need to indicate how the type, although by default it should be linear, but just to be sure, I'm going to force it as a linear type. So it's a numbers type. And then next, what I want to say here, this should be stacked together with this one here. So those two must understand each other. So I'm going to say a stack, and this stack, I'm just going to give it the y scale, and you can give it anything you want, doesn't matter. It's just basically a term, but the term must be identical on both sides, so it will understand that these two should stack on each other. If you would give you different items, then it doesn't recognize it as the same group, basically. Comma. And then what I'm going to do here is, well, let's save this first and see what happens. If I refresh here, all right, interesting, we get some errors. So most likely I forgot a comma or something, but let's look. No, refresh. As you can see here, we have some challenges here, because this part here is up, and then, but that one needs to be down. So that is one of the items that we need to fix. And well, let's look at that. So to do this, I'm going to just check here what exactly needs to be readjusted. So this is the only tricky part. Alright, so this is still a quite tricky item. So let's scroll down here and let me just get back here at this part here. The options, where are we? Here. This one here is a mistake of my site, and the reason why is we have here the y-axis key, but you might say, well, why do we have y-axis key here? This should be, of course, not the y-axis key, but whatever the y-axis is called. And if you remember, I'm going to grab this one and put that in here, and I made that mistake here. So this y lower axis key, because that is the term, basically, reference to this item here. And this, we're going to say here, this should be an X, so it will be related to this scale here. If I save this, we should have at least something. Alright, so we have the first one, but you can see it's still in the opposite direction. So I'm going to scroll down here, and we're going to change just this item here. You can see here, I'm going to cut out this, put enter here, put that in there, comma this, and we can remove this comma there, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have this. Then we have the y scale. Alright, so that's all together, and they're stacked together. That's fine. This one here has somehow still not everything. So what I need to do here, I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to force a proper y-axis here. So we have this y-axis ID. I'm going to copy this, scroll up here. because we have the order different, and for some reason for that it grabs then this item here. So I'm going to force this to a Y, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have it, but it's still not the right proportion. I want this one bigger and that one smaller. So if I like that, and what we can do is we can probably remove all the tooltips in here and do all these fancy stuff. So what I'm going to do here is, let's look here in the line, comma, I'm going to say here, hit radius 0 and point radius, and that will be 0 as well. Save, refresh. Alright, so that is fine. And if I do this, you can see here it will still be here up. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this here up gets a bigger portion compared to that. Scroll down here to the scales, and let's search. There we are. We have here the scale, and we have in this group, but because it's a group here, we can indicate how big one part will be compared to the other. So what I'm going to say here is stack weight, and this stack weight I'm going to say this is relative. So this is a ratio. So this is a ratio of 1, and this ratio of 1, and this stack weight, this should be a bigger one, so I'm going to say stack weight here will be 4. So that will mean this is 20% and this is 80% of the entire chart area. So if I save that, refresh, there we are. So we get this one that starts to look exactly nice. So if I start to select this, absolutely wonderful. And what is very nice is, because it starts at 0 here, this is 0, and here the 0 from this line will nicely blend with the 100 here, which is a coincidence. I didn't do this on purpose, but if I look at it, it will work. Well, at least in this case, this is just luck on our side. So now we have this. Then the next video, we're going to focus on drawing the lines. We usually with a relative strength index, there's like a line on, I guess, on the 20 or on the 80 or somewhere in there. So I'm going to draw that in the next video.